This year, for the very first time, Evermore offered a season pass for regular attendees. This was exciting on its own, but one of the added benefits listed on the page was that there would be members-only quest lines and exclusive guild ranks and responsibilities. We were interested to see what exactly that would look like. Then, on the Monday immediately before the portal to Mythos was set to open, we received a mysterious letter from Evermore. Well, kind of. This was the first sign that dark forces sought to impede our work, because for most of us, the letter went straight into our spam folder. But luckily, I'm part of an involved and helpful community of world walkers that let me know to look for it. The letter was recruiting pass holders to join a secret organization called the Portal Keepers Alliance, or the PKA. The purpose of the PKA is to observe every iteration of Evermore and its ripple effects throughout the realms, and to assist if required. There are 3 rules to being a member of this organization. The first rule of PKA is you do not talk about PKA. Evermorians that live in town do not and must not have any idea about this organization unless otherwise specified. The second rule is that all means of communication must be through letters. The third and final rule is that you will be rewarded with a promotion in guild rank, but only if you complete the necessary tasks before the portal cycle closes. If you choose to accept this mission, you can go to the post office in the town of Evermore and let them know you are expecting a letter from P. Adams. So the first night that the Mythos portal opened, you better believe that I scooted right over there. The letter that I received from P. Adams shared that the automaton Tip Top was investigating a misalignment of magical energies when his proximity to those energies rendered him unable to function. Our assignment is to locate his report in view near his person, containing the information that he was able to gather. This report can be found in the same building as Tip Top, the Copper Confection. However, the report is still encrypted. In order to move forward, we will need to decipher Tip Top's programming. To help us with this, the letter did include a postscript that E6 may be relevant. Of course, I ran around town looking for clues on E6 of every chessboard in Evermore. And eventually I gave up and just solved it like a Sudoku puzzle, finding out what made sense for the 2-letter words and just working backwards from there. After I had gone through that grueling process, my friend Chandrith pointed out that the hint was just suggesting shifting E to be the 6th letter of the alphabet. Or in other words, changing every letter of the message to be the next letter in the alphabet. Once decoded, Tip Top's final message reads that the magical disruption was caused by the chronomancy that occurred while the Aurora portal was open. Evermore's magic could only be realigned by selecting the correct night house for the Fairy Guard contract. It also gives a phrase that, when relayed to the postal service at the Copper Confection, will unlock the next letter. Said letter reaffirms the importance of staying involved with the process of selecting the next Fairy Guard. Word for word, it says calamity may befall the town if the correct Fairy Guard is not chosen. It directs us to Endless Route to receive our next message. Endless Route is an anagram for Loudon's Rest. The message could be found in the area of Evermore called Loudon's Rest, beneath some rubble towards the back of the catacombs. I did get yelled at by a member of security for picking up a piece of rubble as they happened to be walking through, but such is a burden of being a member of the PKA. You can't just explain to them that you're trying to preserve their reality. The message is once again coded to preserve our secret communications. I saw that the signature at the bottom of the letter gave me 5 free letters, and I said, hey, if Sudoku ain't broke, don't fix it. An uncomfortable period of time later, and I had my new alphabet. Only after I was done did I notice all the letters were still in order. This is another Caesar cipher where the letters are shifted by 15, but this time using a custom alphabet, omitting the letter Q. The message introduces us to an ongoing cause of magical misalignment in Evermore, items of power that are influencing part of the power of Evermore. These items need to be discovered and safeguarded. It also directed us as to where and how to get the next letter. Phoenix Adams writes that we are moving in the correct direction. We must still try to positively influence who wins the Feyguard contract, but something threatening looms on the horizon. Another secret message can be found on the interior of the Carriage for the Dead. This is the hearse in the Old Town area of Evermore. The message is predictably ciphered. This time, I noticed some words that were capitalized. Vevin live and Kurtzen room. I moved forward with the assumption that these were supposed to be Evermore and the Pygmy Weeds Inn, respectively. And that gave me a decent chunk of the alphabet. Yeah, I brute forced it like a kindergartner, but how are we supposed to decode it? Well, the hint was in the third letter, which ended with 4 strange characters. This was Hebrew, and it translated to atbash. Atbash is a type of cipher that was originally used to encrypt Hebrew, and it translates an alphabet to the reverse of itself. So, A becomes Z, B becomes Y, and so on. Once cracked, the message warns of someone who is seeking out the sources of power. To find where to collect the next letter, we are directed to a sequence of colors over the notice board in the Pygmy Weed Inn, and told to match them to the map posted at the front of town. I couldn't figure out this one without help either. By this point, I had entirely forgotten about the little map on the coded message inside of the hearse. But that was the key to applying the colors to the town map on the notice board. The order of directions found on the key was top, bottom, left, right. So if you take the colors and find them in that same order, yellow on top, red on the bottom, green on the left, and purple on the right, and then draw lines between the chosen colors, the intersection of those lines on the map is the location to go to. Said location is the Crooked Lantern Tavern, and if you give them the passphrase, they will hand you the next letter. This letter says that the intent of our shadowy figure is to strengthen something old and potentially very dangerous. This is obviously something to be avoided. To get the next message, Phoenix tells us to go to an emerged ever short, to listen closely for a story, and to use what you learn there to find a location and a pattern of 4 colors. So since I was supposed to listen to a story, I went to the front of town and went to Story Time, a new show that was added on the very same week that this letter was made available. Too specific to possibly be a coincidence. At the end of the show, the narrator, Fergus Bifflebottom, said that we might want to visit the newly opened Drakenhaven and look for books of 4 colors. This absolutely has to be it, I figured. So I went up to Fergus and asked him to repeat the 4 colors to make sure that I got them.
The colours at the end there, what was at Drakenhaven, the books?
Well, you see, it was a small blue book with a blue cover,
Yeah.
and it was in between a red and a green large book, and to the left of those was another book in brown.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, best of luck.
Yeah, thank you.
I then headed off to Drakenhaven to look for my next message. I looked over every molecule in that building and could not find anything even remotely like what he was describing. I spent what felt like the whole night there and eventually gave in and even asked the director of show design for help so that I didn't end up touching anything I wasn't supposed to. And he had no idea what Fergus could have meant. Exasperated, I returned to Fergus, who basically just cracked up laughing. Apparently he was just messing with me. So here we are again. How would a non-stupid person have moved forward? Well, an emerged Evershort was an anagram for the Evermore Gardens. If you go to the gardens, there are stone heads that sometimes talk and tell a story about the dwarves and how they love cooking. This would lead you to the dwarf kitchen in the back of the Pygmy Weed Inn. Disguised as a drinking mug inventory list is our next clue, with the colors purple and yellow above it. The original letter said that these colors will lead you to the key. A lot of us searched for what that could mean, and then noticed purple and yellow lights shining on the Moongate in the Highlands area of Evermore. Was the key somehow the word Moongate, or something having to do with the Moongate? We couldn't figure it out. Why? Well, because this was another red herring. The colors were actually intended to just be used the same way as before. Use the colors as points on the map at the front of town and locate the intersection of the lines. If you looked closely in that area, an actual key could be found. The secret message this time tells us to beware of gifts from the unknown. And more specifically, it shares this phrase: "Not every rose is as sweet as its smell, and the heart that is sealed must be brought to light." Alright, so we're keeping an eye out for a rose and a heart. We're supposed to get our next letter at Theft Take Keel. Okay, cool, I'll go see the rogues. Shay's always thieving and taking something. Well, they looked at me like I had multiple heads, so that wasn't it. And then another person on Discord hinted, it's just another anagram. Assume it's always an anagram. Those letters can be arranged into the Kettle Cafe. So I went there and told them the catchphrase, "The phoenix shall rise from the darkness," and they gave me the next letter. The letter reads, "We have located some of the sources of power mentioned previously. These items appear to be able to affect those around them and may be acting upon some of the citizens of your version of Evermore. A story about one of these powerful items is enclosed in this letter, but with certain words redacted due to the sensitive nature of the message. These words can be unredacted if we, as the letter states, Embark on a journey down this rabbit hole and turn the page to the adventure inside. This can apparently be done at the home of Tip Top's creator, the place where the brassy shrine provides satisfaction for his sweet tooth. I think they had seen some of us struggling and decided to be a little bit more heavy-handed this time. Anyway, we're obviously talking again about the Copper Confection, where a copy of the 1865 English novel Alice's Adventures in Wonderland can be found. The missing words from the story can be filled with specific words from the book. For example, the first word was replaced by the number code 15472, which meant on the 154th page, the 7th line, and the second word on that line. Once you grabbed all of the missing words, the message told the story of the coin of Ashcroft. It appears on the screen now if you wanted to pause and read, but essentially, a woodsman showed great kindness to an old woman who turned out to be a magical fairy. The fairy promised him one wish. The woodsman was deeply in debt and just asked the fairy for a means to pay his debt. The fairy produced a gold coin and gave it to the woodsman. This coin, however, was not just money to pay the debt. In fact, it was barely enough to be accepted as a down payment. The coin was cursed. And the very next day after getting the coin, the tavern keeper went mad with greed and died in a duel trying to get even more money. And ever since then, whenever any greedy individual gets possession of that coin, they are driven to their deaths by that greed. The letter even specified that this item once felled an entire kingdom. Anywho, the next letter's back to the pygmy you eat in. This letter was the first letter received after the fairy guard was chosen, so the diviners were able to now get a much clearer picture. As such, they can really lay it all out, and this is the final letter that tries to disseminate information for us to act on. It directs us to 4 clues hidden throughout the town of Evermore. 1 clue for each of the 4 items of magical power that they detected. The messages are found inside the home of the dragons, behind the glass of the corner closest to sunrise, in the house of the dead, behind the man eternally puzzling over his own fate, at the place of the crooked lantern, behind the shield to the left of where your arms must be stowed, in the window of the Kettle Cafe for those who seek adventure on the high seas. The way to interpret these 4 messages are callbacks to all of the ways that we had previously solved ciphers within this questline. The first includes those Hebrew characters again and uses the same @bash cipher. The second has 2-digit number pairs recognizable from that Pelobius cipher and its 5x5 checkerboard. The third has familiar numerical codes and steals words from the Lewis Carroll book again. And the fourth is another Caesar cipher. It says E20 in the corner to help. The decoded messages read, flower from Athenon for life to bestow, coin of avarice for power to imbue, king's heart inspires hope that would stand in the way of those who would revive, ring which seals a connection to the darkness that smothers hope. These are the 4 magical items that are influencing outcomes in the town of Evermore. And world walkers who have been paying close attention to goings-on in town will recognize them, as the quest lines for many guilds involved learning more about them. There are several such moments captured on other videos in this channel if you search around. At some point, maybe I'll have a playlist pop up around this moment if that's something that YouTube allows you to do. This letter says to ensure the best outcomes, not only for the citizens of Evermore, but to keep our reality effectively separated from the others, we must get as many of these items as possible into the hands of the pirates. The 7th and final letter of the season just reminds us of a requirement originally stated way back in that first email, that we must initiate in and gain a maximum reputation with all of the official guilds of Evermore. In order to advance to the next PKA tier, we needed to collect signatures from every guild indicating that we did actually join their faction.
Who's that for? Why did I sign?
I can forget to sign stuff. I will sign nothing.
We were to include those signatures along with a written report, including our investigations, discoveries, and suspicions. We need to seal that all in an envelope and pay 5 gold postage to ensure that it gets delivered back to Phoenix Adams. Those who did so, completing the entire questline, were recognized at a special ceremony on the final night of the season. An exclusive group of 25 individuals received this honor. We were presented with a key and the seal for the 2nd level of PKA membership. The letter shares that due to our efforts helping to align the magical energies, we set things on the best path to save the most lives, not only in our version of Evermore, but in other versions as well. The letter continues. Things may appear to be dark up ahead with the coming lore portal cycle, but things could have been much worse. And because of your actions, there's now a chance to, well, we'll dive into that later. And that was it for the Mythos season. If you would like to participate in the next PKA quest yourself, as of this recording, the lore season has not started yet, so you still have the opportunity to get the most out of a season pass. The season pass for lore costs $200, which is insanely cheap for what you get. If you go every time, that's under $10 per entry. And that's not even counting the extra perks like merch and food discounts. Evermore doesn't know that I'm making this video and didn't ask me to say anything like that. I just think it's a really good deal. Anyway, that's it for this time. As always, I could care less whether you like and subscribe. I do this for me, and will stop the moment that I don't feel like it anymore. For real ongoing Evermore content, check out a talented creator like Ever Adventurous. I'm assuming I can make something pop up here. I don't know how YouTube works, but thank you for watching this video, and you are great.